This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
All right, everybody, welcome to the WWE Podcast. Time to talk Monday Night Raw that took place last night. And boy, what an event it was. I feel like Raw had more talking points than the actual PLE did for Survivor Series. There's a lot to talk about. Big events, big return, two big heel turns. That's right, two big heel turns. We'll talk about that on a segment with the New Day that I have been back and forth and back and seen every opinion under the sun about it. And I've been able to formulate my own opinion. I think I've landed on a solid perspective on that one as I've kind of waffled back and forth. But I want to welcome you guys to the show. If you're new here, you can get an ad-free experience. All the ads you hear throughout the show disappear just like magic if you head on over to patreon.com/WWE podcast to get yourself an ad-free everything. And you can head on over to Apple. Apple does offer that as well. Now, Apple also offers an ad-free experience for not just this show, but our new show. It's called The War on Truth, and it is not wrestling-based, so just FYI, it's not about wrestling, but you can get that also on Patreon at patreon.com/TheWarOnTruth. So we now have ad-free options in the same places for both shows. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into Monday Night Raw. I'm just going to talk about the New Day right off the top. Not going to wait. I'm going to talk about the New Day. Yes, we had a big return at the end of the show. Yes, we had a Punk Seth Rollins segment, and New Day celebrating throughout the night, looking like things are good. And both Kofi and Xavier turn. Both men turn. Not just Xavier that we've been expecting for weeks and weeks and really months at this point. It really did swerve us, most of us. I don't think anybody saw Kofi also being the one to turn with Xavier. I don't think that was really something that was in the cards, including myself. I didn't see it coming. I might have floated it as a possibility. And yeah, at one point I might have, but I certainly didn't land on it as any serious reality that could take place, and it did. So let's get into it. Let's get into the details here as a point by point. And we have the New Day ceremony. Balloons, championship belts, photos, bootios. And Pierce comes out and introduces Kofi and Xavier. They walked out together. And the crowd was chanting New Day rocks. And then we had Woods said, getting to this point is more than they could have dreamed of. Woods said they wanted to thank everyone. And Kingston said it's been a hell of a ride. He said he never in his wildest dreams would have imagined everything they'd accomplish. Kingston said they couldn't have done it without the fans, and fans called for Big E. Woods said they miss him too, and Woods said what they were about to tell the fans is not their fault. Woods said they have nothing but love for the fans, and Kingston said he and Woods spoke, and after what happened between them last week, and Big E's entrance theme interrupted Kingston, and Big E walked out while Barrett said that while Big E has hosted premium live events, he hasn't appeared on Raw or SmackDown in nearly 4 years. That's crazy. It's crazy. Has it really been 4 years? No. I have to go back. I got to Google that. When did Big E get injured? Because when I heard that stat, I said to myself, well, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. Okay. Big E was injured back on March 11th, 2022. So it's like, what, almost 3 years ago? I mean, 2.75 years ago. So that's a wrong stat, unless I'm reading this wrong. But however, let's continue on here. We had Big E tell the fans he can't thank them enough. He said he wished he was there under different circumstances, and said that seeing Kingston and Woods bickering and saying some of the most hurtful things imaginable to one another hurt his soul. And he said They had each other when they started the New Day, and Kingston was contemplating retirement, and he and Woods were close to being fired. Big E recalled Kingston and Woods being at the hospital, making sure he was okay. He spoke about being in a neck brace when he held Kingston's child for the first time. And he said that what they built means a lot to people, and it means a hell of a lot to him. So until I'm medically cleared to return to this ring, I'm going to remind the two of you exactly who we are, or who you are. And Big E added he would be there every week as their manager. That's about to change, because Woods said he was about to speak when a New Day Rocks chant broke out, or he was about to speak. And then he said, now you want to come back. After you watched us fight for months, after you watched us argue to the edge of a cliff, and the last thing left to do is jump, now you want to come back? E, you left us. And Kingston, or E said that he broke his neck. Kingston cut him off, and probably the line of the night. I can't believe that Kofi Kingston had the line of the night, but he did. And he said, yeah, you broke your neck. So what? And he said that Steve Austin, Kurt Angle, and Edge all broke their necks and came back. And Woods said those three didn't even have people to come back to. And Kingston said, as big and strong as E is, and because he never actually had surgery, he was actually telling them he couldn't have come back before. E said he's been doing his best to get back. And then Woods said he tore his Achilles off the bone and actually needed surgery, but he was back in 9 months for Big E. Kingston said that if E actually cared about them, he would have been back a long time ago. And he chose his life, his new girlfriend, his stepchild over them. Do you even realize the burden you've become? That's a great line. Woods complained about the fans everywhere, saying they miss E. And Woods said they almost also miss E, but E didn't miss them. And Big E, they said that Big E chose himself over Woods. And Woods told E to stop teasing the people and speak the truth. He said, you're never going to be medically cleared. Woods told E to get the hell out of the ring and get back to his desk where he belongs. And Big E was off mic saying, you guys are going to really throw this all away right now. They could fix this. Big E went for a hug, but Kingston straight armed him, and Big E pleaded with Woods. So I did have mixed feelings on this. I did. I was very adamant that the only solution that they could have at this point to not do anything wild was to have Kofi and Xavier have a feud. Big E tries to break it up, whatever. He's there for some kind of trying to be the voice of reason, and Xavier turns on Kofi. And instead, we get just a apparently off-camera resolution between Xavier and Kofi, and they came up with the brilliant idea that Big E is the problem. He's the reason that they're failing. Even though he's not there, that's the whole point. He's not there to help when he should be. Even he's saying you broke your neck, so what? I mean, it's great. I don't know who came up with that, but boy, that was a very impactful line. And so I was originally a little bit annoyed that they just totally abandoned this story that they built with Kofi and Xavier, and the tension and the shoving, and when are they going to finally attack one another? When's Xavier finally going to have enough? And they didn't pay that off in that way. It still may come down the line, but for the time being, we're getting a dual heel turn with Big E, who's apparently not medically cleared to wrestle yet. And again, I was originally annoyed, but the promos were arguably the best promos that either man has cut in their entire careers. Now, that's not saying much, given that I have a massive issue with the New Day characters. I've despised them for the last decade. Like I said, outside of the first half a year, I was not entertained by them. I did not find them funny. I found them obnoxious. The trombone more than outlived its welcome. We had Bootios. We had disrespecting the WWE Championship. Just go down the line. The inside jokes, the sophomore humor, the breaking of the fourth wall, all the crap that I hate about pro wrestling in today's modern era, they embodied on a weekly basis, and I despise them for it. Okay, so the bar is not exactly high. I mean, I can't even recall any good promos from them at all during that 10 years. So the bar, again, is low, but I also may be a bit biased, and given that I just tune them out on a weekly basis. So my point is, they had an awesome night because these promos, were they over the top a bit? Yeah. And all of a sudden they're just turning on E because he wasn't there for them, even though he has a broken neck. Is that a little bit off the believable spectrum? You could argue. But what does this do? It turns both men heel, which both men are in desperate need of a change. After 10 effing years of doing the same shtick, it's about time. It also showed you how good Xavier is on the mic, or rather reminded you how good he is on the mic. He was just stellar. I mean, Xavier played his part well. So did Kofi. Who knew Kofi had that in him? Mr. Positivity, right? It was great. And to see the sympathy on Big E's face, or the hurt on his face, to garner sympathy from the viewing audience, I think it generally worked. Now the question is, okay, you did this, 2 heel turns. Now what's the deal? What do you do with this group? The group is effectively disbanded outside of Kofi and Xavier still remaining a team, which, again, the downside is Xavier doesn't get his breakout singles run yet that we've been waiting for. I know I have. But you've seen that he can definitely hold his own. He's more than ready for a singles run. But if they feel that this temporary still alliance with Kofi is going to be best for his long-term success, then fine. I'm ready to see where they take it. But the sympathy on Big E's face is where we're really supposed to keep our focus here, because the fans are thinking, well, where the hell is Big E? If they're going to do this, they got to have him medically cleared, right? Well, he may be close. And I think that there's a theory out there that's been floated that I prescribe to, and that is Big E returning to in-ring action at the Royal Rumble. That's what I think is going to happen. And I think what you're going to see is having both Kofi and Xavier run roughshod, be just obnoxious as hell for the next 2 months. Maybe even have Big E next week come back, or on SmackDown, because the brand rules don't exist, wherever, and try to just talk to them one last time, give it one last try to fix things, and they then resort to trying to break Big E's neck with a chair. I did talk about that on my previous show, that's a possibility, and having Big E somehow get involved physically. But that's how you do it. And maybe they do use a chair around his head and try to snap his neck again. And maybe they go that far in a safe way, of course. And then Big E disappears for 2 months, right? He disappears. You kind of put him in the back of your mind thinking, okay, well, they did that spot. Maybe he's not medically cleared. And then both Kofi and Xavier are in the ring alone at the Rumble, and here comes Big E. That would be a hell of a story to tell in the Rumble. Not that any of those 3 men have a chance to win the Rumble, but it's one of those stories within the general story for the Royal Rumble that I would love to see play out. And have Big E, the pop for Big E, if he were to return to the ring at the Rumble, I think would be, if a 10 is the best pop I've ever heard, it'd probably be like a 7.5, which is, again, in the grand scheme of 30 years of watching and listening to wrestling, pretty good, sample size. 7.5, I think, is where it would land. And just because if they set it up right and having Big E come out, it would be a lot of fun. Now the question would become, what's the long-term plan? Does Big E just work with Kofi and Xavier down the line? Where does that land? I mean, you can't do a 2-on-1 scenario forever. So how do things even out? Well, Big E has to find a companion. At some point, he's going to have to find a tag team partner to take down the New Day, or take down what's left of the New Day in Kofi and Xavier. So again, that's about 4 steps, 5 steps, 6 steps away. But this is clearly something that they're working towards, because otherwise you wouldn't bring Big E in here to use him as a tool for a heel turn, which I think was very effective. A dual heel turn. How often do you see that? And then you have Big E be set up for, again, a physical in-ring return. If you don't have Big E return for in-ring competition, I don't know what the hell this was for. Yeah, I don't know. But it does also make me excited for what could be next for Big E. And maybe he stops gyrating. And he stops making jokes. And starts getting serious. That'd be nice. If he comes back on a singles run. But anyway, my ultimate conclusion for this segment, was mixed and back and forth. They've hooked me. Not line and sinker, but I have the hook in my mouth, and I'm willing to go along for the ride. I initially was saying, what is this? Why are we pivoting? Thinking it's one of those Vince McMahon specials where they pivot to shock for shock's sake with no actual idea of what the follow-up is. Just to swerve fans that think they're the smart ones that know what we're going to do, and then, we're going to fool you. And then as fans are going to, okay, yeah, cool. You did. What's next, though? How does this benefit you again long-term? Do you have a plan? No? Oh, well, congrats. Congratulations, right? It felt a lot of times like creative would do that to fans. And with Triple H and company, they seem more strategic. They're all about storytelling long-term. At least they're fooling me if they aren't. It seems like they are. So I'm here for it. Like, I'm going to let it play itself out. And I've kind of given you at least through the rumble of how things I think could go. All right. Well, we obviously had a lot more happen on Raw. So let's get to that. Let's start at the beginning of Raw. And we had Punk come out in his non-wrestling attire, introduced by Lillian Garcia. Still cool to hear Lillian on the mic. And he says, "Oh, it's good to be alive." I don't know why he does that. But he said the show was sold out. He said the last time he saw fans saw him on Raw, he wasn't sure what the future held coming from a Hell in a Cell match, and said he was fresh off of a potential career-ending War Games match, but he was feeling a lot better than he did coming out of Hell in a Cell. And he said that he put things aside and did some personal business for a friend, Paul Heyman, and then Punk stood on the middle rope and said he knows what the future holds. He pointed to the rafters and asked fans if they could see it. Punk said he could see it even though everyone told him it wasn't there. Punk said he knows what the future holds. He said there are different roads you can take to get there, and there's different ways to finish your story. Can we retire that phrase? I need to retire the finish your story phrase. I don't need to hear it anymore. But anyway, Punk spoke about the Royal Rumble and Elimination Chamber being his possible road. And he also said he has a favor or two that he can call in. So that could be exactly what he's using it for Paul Heyman for, is not to get a match with Roman. He could do that at any time. But to potentially use Paul Heyman's leverage, his political influence, if you will, to get himself into a big-time match for a championship. Maybe Punk also should explore the option of, I don't know, attack the champion, go up to him and just say, "Hey, you and me, what do you want to put the belt on the line? Hey, Gunther, I'm calling you out." Just like walk out into Raw and say, "Hey, calling you out," or even put out a simple tweet. All of these are ultra easy and will be as effective as getting a match by going the hard way, right? So, of course, I'm using too much logic. In pro wrestling land, they are trying to tell a story with Punk. I understand that. But if this was actually a real competition, and this was something that was actually something he was trying to do, but trying to find a way to do it, this would be the way. Just literally send out a tweet. and you will get your match, or at least it'll be the start of your progression towards getting a championship match. So, or again, like I said, just call him out on Raw, but I get it. It's a story. It's fine. So anyway, he said that after the favor, we then got interrupted by Seth Rollins. And Punk and Rollins stood in opposite corners. And then we had Rollins say he's been thinking a lot, and he determined that he should have knocked Punk's ass out the day he returned to do WWE, and said he's regretted not doing it every single day for the past year. Rollins said said a lot has gotten in the way over the last year, and Rollins said Punk got hurt. He had titles to defend and a bloodline to take down. Rollins said the last time he saw Punk, he was close to taking his shot, but he had pity for him because he had just come out of Hell in a Cell. Rollins said having pity for Punk was his mistake, and Rollins said that seeing Punk stand triumphant next to Roman Reigns made it clear to him that it was time to rectify his mistake. Rollins removed his jacket, tossed it to ringside, and then Rollins said there's nothing in his way or Punk's way. Rollins said no one was holding him back or them back, and the only thing between them was air and hatred. And Rollins said he had a feeling in his gut that this would be the night he knocks Punk's on his ass. Punk then said that he talks too much and he doesn't listen. Punk recalled saying he put the personal things aside and said that Rollins was champion 6 months ago and now he had something he wanted at that time, but now he has nothing that he wants. And Punk said he knows where he's going. I know what's in my future, kid. You ain't it. And Punk stepped closer to Rollins while saying that Rollins thought about him for 6 months, but he doesn't think about Rollins at all. Punk said he has things to do in the business and told Rollins to stay out of his. And then he said that Punk talks too much, that Rollins that is, and he doesn't listen enough. He said, this is my business. And then Rollins shoved Punk to the mat. Punk got up and a bit of a fighting stance there. And Jey Uso and Sami Zayn played security guard here and pulled Punk and Rollins apart. And, of course, Adam Pearce blew his top because he's paid to do that on a weekly basis. And we had Rollins get on the mic and ask Punk if he's his business now. And Rollins threw some kicks at Punk through the ropes. And Zayn said that he gets that Rollins is angry, but he doesn't get to talk to Jey that way. And Rollins said Zayn was right. And it ended up causing tension between Sami and Seth that led to our main event. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Quite an interesting, effective segment here. Effective segment. And this really pushed things forward in a big way. You know, we got to Punk Rollins, finally. But did we? It is December after all. WrestleMania is, however, 4 or 5 months away. 4 months? 4 months. 4 months and change away. So it could be time to start teasing it. But if the WrestleMania plan are those two hooking it up, locking it up, then it may be still too early. So this may be a dress rehearsal for what the real program is going to be after the Rumble. Or maybe even after Chamber, when they go full blast into Seth and Punk. My point is, you can't do Seth Punk starting now if the plan is to have them also compete at WrestleMania. Too early. So I think they're just maybe setting the table. Rollins once again is going to get distracted, or Punk's going to get distracted once again. That's my guess. So we'll see how that works out. Unless they have separate plans for both Rollins and Punk at WrestleMania. They may not be actually aiming for that, and they're getting this match out of the way now for Saturday night's main event, or maybe at the Rumble itself. Although I do think that would be a waste of both men if they're going to compete in a match and not compete at the Rumble, but they can do both, I guess. All right. So we then have the first match of the night after a Balor segment in the back. We'll talk more about that. But Io Sky and Kairi Sane versus Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez was the very first match of the night. This match was 5.5 minutes with Liv Morgan and Raquel beating Io and Kairi Sane, and it was Raquel Rodriguez getting a Tejada bomb for the victory on Kairi Sane, and obviously won the match. After the match, though, Morgan Rodriguez attacked Sane, and Rhea Ripley's music hit, and she comes out. Morgan acted like she was going to fight Ripley, but she fled, and then Ripley cleared the ring, cleared Rodriguez from the ring with a clothesline, and slammed her head on the broadcast table several times. And then Morgan, jumped on Ripley's back, which allowed Raquel to kick Ripley in the gut, and then throw her into the corner of the table and try to damage her already damaged eye or orbital bone. And so Rhea Ripley did the best she could to sell that. Looked like she was okay. I mean, they didn't try to provide us with any special effects or fake blood or anything like that. So more of just the story that they're trying to tell of these vicious heels trying to go after an injury that we all know was real. So, all right. We then had, there was a Io Sky botch. That wasn't particularly fun, but it was one. So there you go, Chris Jericho. If you're listening, yeah, there was a botch. Io Sky had a botch. Did you hear about the word botch, Chris? If you're wondering what the hell I'm doing, guys, I said this on my last show. Chris Jericho has a really big problem with fans saying botch, as if apparently we're not authorized to say it without pre-qualified approval. Anyway. So, Dakota Kai then took on Kairi Sane. Dakota Kai versus Katana Chance versus Shayna Baszler. Yes, she still works for the company. In a women's Intercontinental title tournament match. And this was 7 minutes where Dakota Kai ends up beating Katana Chance and Shayna Baszler in 7 minutes. And it wasn't the smoothest of matches. And hey, what can you say? This wasn't really a botchy match, if you will. It wasn't one that was, the smoothest of matches, particularly the ending with Katana Chance hitting the 450 on Shayna Baszler that was about 6 inches away from her. Obviously she landed on her hands and knees, and Shayna Baszler had to sell it like she'd actually been splashed. Like that wasn't great. But it was actually nice to see Shayna Baszler in there. And if you were to ask me who was going to advance in this, I would have said Shayna Baszler. I mean, whatever happened to Snap, Tap, or Nap? Remember that? Remember the Elimination Chamber when we had Shayna Baszler just buzzsaw through 6 women or 5 women? Remember that? Liv Morgan being one of them in that match, I believe. I'd have to go back and see who the participants were. Was that 2022? Maybe it was. 2020? No, it was, you know what it was? Might have been 2020. Because they were trying to build her up for Becky Lynch. And we had the beautiful, empty arena WrestleMania in the Performance Center that we all want to forget ever happened. Appreciate WWE for doing it, but it's just, it was a crime of many injustices. It was not a great night, because just the ambiance was just totally killed that night. And so many programs that night were unfortunately derailed because of the crowd not being there. And I felt horrible for Drew McIntyre that night, even though he beat Brock Lesnar. Randy Orton and Edge, with their brilliant program and build-up, have a backstage brawl for like 45 minutes. Remember that? So, yeah, I mean, maybe at some point I'll go back and review WrestleMania 36, but it's one I'm sure we all want to forget. However, way off track. I just remember a Shayna Baszler that was a killer. I remember Shayna Baszler that would actually try to break people's arms. She broke Nia, and again, this is of course in story, although she did, I don't know if Shayna Baszler actually had any actual issues injuring women, but Shayna Baszler, she went on a tear at one point of just snapping people's limbs, and it was so much fun to watch. That's who Shayna Baszler is, a killer, or was. So I would have picked her in this match, but I was dead wrong. Alrighty. So let's see here. The January 6th Raw debut on Netflix got a video package. Don't forget, John Cena will be on that Raw. It's going to be a massive Raw. I don't think it's just John Cena. You very well and likely will see The Rock. Hell, Stone Cold may be there. I mean, it's going to be a star-studded Raw. They're going to try to make it, and rightfully so, a massive Raw for the debut on Netflix. This is a massive transition. The first time they've gone off cable TV into a streaming service exclusively. No deal with Fox for Raw. Anyway, no deal with USA. Just Netflix. So, that's a big deal. And the first show after the holidays, after New Year's, is always a big show. It's like things get supercharged because you're past the holidays, past all the tapings and the double show tapings, and you're ready to just get into WrestleMania season. The Rumble's right around the corner. You know, you're ready to just go. So this is going to be a massive show. Alrighty. So then we had the New Day celebration, which we already went over. And then we have a Karrion Kross video promo being aired, and he said he's done some terrible things to people, and he's actually proud of. He said he has a tolerance when people do things back to him, but he took issue with that, quote, creature that was being sent to go after his wife. Kross said he wants the Wyatt Six in the arena next week, and he said they started the fire, and now he will make sure they burn in it. I like it. Short to the point. All right. World Heavyweight Champion Gunther took on Dominic Mysterio in a non-title match. And this match ended up going pretty short for a Gunther match. 6 minutes and 45 seconds with Gunther defeating Dominic. But here's the finish. Gunther put Dom in a sleeper. They moved to the corner. The referee was trapped with his back turned. Dom threw a low blow that the ref didn't see to break the hold. Dom hit a 619 and followed up with a frog splash for the near fall. Again, you have a low blow, and yes, I know it's Dominic, okay? Not the strongest guy in the world, but it's still a finish in pro wrestling. You need to respect it. And again, even after a low blow was applied, which is a finish in and of itself, or used to be, you have an actual finish being applied, and he still kicks out. I just take issue with it. It takes the drama out of finishes being hit. I'm not saying finishes should never be kicked out of, but when you expect them to, the expectation is that finishes are kicked out of, like everyone's are kicked out of, you got a problem. All right, so we then had Gunther blast Dom with a chop, hit a powerbomb for the victory. So Dom doesn't kick out of that, but Gunther should have won that, and he did. After the match, though, Finn Balor attacks Gunther and ended up hitting him with a coup de grace, and Balor approached Dom and said, "Watch and learn, kid." He hit 2 more coup de grace and then picked up the title and dropped it on Gunther. A "one more time" chant broke out. Balor smiled at Dom and left the ring. As Balor walked to the back, he said, "That's how you do it, and Dom needs to watch and learn." So it looks like, if I was to venture a guess, that's not exactly earth-shattering or intelligent, but logical, we're going to have a triple threat for the World Heavyweight Championship at the Saturday Night Main Event in a couple weeks with Gunther, Priest, and Balor. Even though I want Balor and Priest to have their one-on-one, like I need that, I don't think we're going to get it, given that now we have a attack by Balor on Gunther, which, to be fair, Gunther did attack Balor the night before, or 2 nights before, after he interfered to screw Priest. So it's kind of this web of tangled, feuds going on that it does warrant a triple threat, and I think we'll get one. Yeah, we don't get enough of them. Okay. We then have Pete Dunne get interviewed about his match against R-Truth, and Kelly wondered if Truth thought he was facing Butch. But Dunne stopped her from saying Butch, and Dunne looked into the camera and stressed his name is Pete Dunne. All right. Pete Dunne versus R-Truth. R-Truth beats Pete Dunne in 1 minute and 50 seconds. The finish of this was Dunn being done. Well, it's not really finished. The whole match is the finish because Dunn was dominant from the start, but we then had Dunn looking to the crowd and got some of the desired Butch chants because that's, I guess, what he was going for. R-Truth then took advantage of the distraction and rolled up Dunn for the 3 count. That's that. So R-Truth getting consistent TV time is always a positive. It's nice to see R-Truth out there. Ron Killings seems like a genuinely good dude. He really does. All right. Intercontinental Champion Braun Breaker was then interviewed. He said Sheamus cracked a rib during the triple threat match at Survivor Series. Ludwig Kaiser showed up and asked Breaker if he was happy with himself for stealing his pin. Kaiser said it didn't matter because he accomplished what he needed to. And he said Sheamus broke his rib and he returned the favor. Kaiser said there's nothing stopping him from taking the Intercontinental title and bringing it back to Imperium where it belongs. Breaker asked if that was a challenge. He said he knew Kaiser would say that he wasn't beaten in the triple threat. Breaker said Kaiser will never hold the title, but he gave him his props for the match at Survivor Series and said Kaiser should look to get out of Gunther's shadow quickly because Gunther's stock is plummeting. Which is true. I mean, I thought we were already distancing Gunther and Kaiser. I thought they kind of went their separate ways. So I don't know what we're talking about Imperium for. I thought it was just kind of quietly disbanded. But, all right. All right. We then have a few announcements here for next week's Raw, by the way. And it's Raquel Rodriguez versus Rhea Ripley, Lyra Valkyria versus Zelina Vega versus Ivy Nile. So it's triple threat, Lyra, Zelina, Ivy in a women's IC title tournament match. Karrion Kross, Akam, Rezar, and The Miz versus Uncle Howdy, Eric Rowan, Dexter Lumis, and Joe Gacy in an 8-man tag team match. Should be a fun week next week. All right. Then it was time for Seth Rollins versus Sami Zayn. And again, good match. 2 guys that are already Hall of Famers. Seth Rollins did beat Sami Zayn in 9 minutes and 20 seconds, but that's not really the story here. The story isn't Seth suddenly having a program with with Sami Zayn, because here's the finish. Zayn grabs a chair, gets in the ring. Rollins asked Zayn what he was doing. Zayn accused Rollins of attacking Jay because we don't know who did. And then Rollins said he wouldn't do that and asked Zayn if he questioned CM Punk. Zayn tossed the chair to the ringside, and Rollins caught Zayn in an inside cradle and got the 3 count. Yes, the dreaded inside cradle roll-up, if you will, strikes again. So it's fine. Seth Rollins wins 9 minutes and 20 seconds. But here's what the biggest takeaway from this match is. And we had Rollins tell Zayn after the match that he loves his heart, but he has to start using his head. Rollins left the ring, played to the crowd on the stage. Zayn turned around and was hit with a Claymore, who was none other than, of course, Drew McIntyre, who was wearing a hoodie pulled up over his head, and he just looked down at Zayn to close the show. So Zayn was accusing Rollins of attacking Jay, but I think we all know that at the end of the day, it's not only Drew McIntyre attacking Sami and where that program leads, but it's clearly Drew McIntyre who attacked Jay. So the whodunit pretty quickly solved. Doesn't make sense for Seth to do it, and I think we're there now. So that was WWE Raw last night, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Certainly a noteworthy show. And like I said, it felt more impactful and noteworthy than the actual Big Four, one of the Big Four PLEs that took place the night before. Pretty wild. Pretty wild. And before you know it, we'll be talking, yes, Saturday Night Main Event, but more importantly, Royal Rumble. That's not too far away, although it is in February. So don't forget about that. I mean, that may be the first time ever, and it was some time I've been watching anyway, that we've had the Royal Rumble in February. But just so you know, the Elimination Chamber, okay, so we have, wow, this is wild. So we've got the Rumble on February 1st. We've got the Chamber on March 1st. This is just a travesty. Then we got WrestleMania, the latest I've ever seen it too, at WrestleMania 41, of course, from Vegas, April 19th to April 20th. Quite a interesting setup of dates for all of these shows. Now, if you are looking to look for the next PLE, again, guys, Saturday night's main event from Uniondale, New York. It's at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. It's December 14th. 2 weeks. Less than. After that, there's no PLE. I'm looking. I don't see him. I don't see another PLE. That means if there's no additional PLE, and I don't think there is because the holidays and everything, we will go from Survivor Series November 30th to February 1st between PLEs. Saturday night's main event, it's your interim, okay? It's like your C PLE. You have your A PLEs, which are SummerSlam, WrestleMania, Rumble, and Survivor Series. And then you have your B pay-per-views, which are your Crown Jewels and your Elimination Chambers and your No Mercies and Bad Bloods. But then there's like a C PLE because it's a very short turnaround from the previous PLE, which I think hurts it a little bit. And it's not exactly an event that people are like, oh my God, I can't wait for. It just doesn't have that behind it. So Saturday's main event, low bar, which does lead you to really overachieve. With a low bar, you're bound to overachieve it. So there is that. But anyway, we're going to go from November 30th to February 1st between real PLEs with this kind of interim stop here, this stopgap of Saturday night main event. December 14th. But yeah, so here we are, guys. We're getting closer, just starting to really close in on WrestleMania season. It's about to begin. So thank you, everybody, for listening. If you want to go ad-free, patreon.com/WWE podcast or patreon.com/The War on Truth, which, again, is not about wrestling, but check it out if you're interested in things beyond wrestling. And Apple Podcast doesn't offer a ad-free experience for both WWE and my other show, The War on Truth. Both do offer free 7-day trials. You can try it, and then if you don't like it, cancel it before the 7 days is over, and you don't have to pay anything. And that does offer everything ad-free for those of you interested. So check it out, and I appreciate all of your all your reviews, all of your comments. I do see and appreciate all of them, and I do think that, and I know without you guys, the show wouldn't be here. So thanks so much, everybody, and I will catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.